I would like to move on to the final panel, if I could, which will tie together the different discussions that we have had today about technology. Our panel will be discussing leveraging technology to drive regional trade. And I would like to welcome my four eminent panelists. We have Shehu Abdulkadir, General Manager of Carmine Assayer Limited. We have Emmanuel Kalu, Chief Operating Officer, Union Systems. We have Wale Kuku, Managing Director of F1 Interactive Solution Limited. And we have Jibrin Saleh, Deputy Director for Trade and Exchange Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. So welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining. Before we start with the questions on our final panel, I would just like to get any feedback from everyone there about the different discussions we've seen today, and particularly about my presentation on tech and the impact that it can have in Africa's trade value chain. I can see. Well, maybe if we could, Emmanuel, if you would like to give the first comment, and we can come to Shehu in a moment. Emmanuel, you're live.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Ted, like you said in your discussion, you mentioned the issue of stamping out fraud, creating a single document that is shared across borders. I think your presentation was spot on. The opportunities that have happened somewhere in Africa, like what you showed with the Tanzanian Revenue Authority, something that can be adopted across board. And I think we're getting to the root of the problem. Africa, they have their unique trade processes, and we need to exploit unique solutions to be able to solve them. So I believe by the time we discuss further on this panel, we'll elaborate on so much of what you've spoken about. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you very much. Wale, could I have your initial comments, please?
Yeah. So, how you doing, Ted? So, I agree with your presentation when you say that Africa has a major advantage in mobile penetration, and I also agree that mobile penetration with what I call Africa's 6G technology, which is USSD, gives us a lot of possibilities to do many things. Secondly, I also like to mention something. I also like to mention this, that the fourth industrial revolution and its technologies, alongside innovation, is going to create massive opportunities for Africa and trade also. Brookings says that the fourth industrial revolution and digitization is going to transform Africa to a global powerhouse. And I believe with this technology and innovation, I believe that we can make a huge, massive difference in trade. And as we go down, or as we speak.
Hopefully our technical people can work out what's happened to two of our guests there. But I wonder then if I could move to you, Emmanuel. One thing I'd like to talk about is a number of these new technologies which are being deployed in the trade sector. We call it trade tech, technology of trade, and it embraces many, many different things. But often when people talk about it, it's very, pie in the sky. It's very hard to understand what practically is happening on the ground. So I'd like to go through the different panelists and understand some of the specific technologies they've seen. So I wonder if, Emmanuel, you could tell us a bit about the option system for supply chain, because this seems very innovative and really goes through some of the difficulties of the trade value chain.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Yes, the trade problem we have in Africa, like I mentioned, is quite simple. It's simple. Let me use the example of Nigeria. If I want to import something to the country, I need to do 6 things. First, I go to the CBN portal, single window, fill up a form, I get to a bank who validates this form. The bank takes some charges. I need to share this information with my supplier. And the guy goes back and forth, maybe says he wants a letter of credit. The bank has to do that. When the shipments arrive and the documents come in, we have to go to CBN for FX. That's a 4th step. And while we're getting to FX, Then we have to go to the port to pay our PAR, which is a pre-assessment report, exchange control goods. We have to transfer money out of the country. You now find out that the corporate is doing so many things, paying so many charges. He does not understand the value chain. The stakeholders are many. He doesn't know when he arrives. There's a lot of time, linkage. Documents are being created over and over. And we solved that problem with our 15 years experience as union system. We built a product called Optimus. It's actually, what it does is to unite all the stakeholders in the value chain. You have a corporate, you have all his suppliers together, you have his logistics, he has access to his insurance company, and he has access to his banks and all the regulators, CBN, in one trade portal. He can initiate and manage all his transactions. He can actually pay for them from his desktop or his mobile phone. So imagine the possibility, sitting down in the calm of your office with all your banks available. From the second you fill in that Form M, you don't need to recreate data. This data flows across to CBN, get your PAR, your ECD, your goods are cleared, and you can print your duty, pay whatever you have to pay online. So COVID, like you said, is the elephant in the room. It has forced people to avoid going to branches. And that's where this kind of trade portal is very effective in solving problems. Let me stop at that for now.
That's great. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Jibrin, thank you very much. I see you've joined us again. I wonder if I could put the question to you as well. We've seen a lot of digital innovation being applied to the trade value chain in Africa, and I'd like to talk about some specific examples. So from the CBN's perspective, maybe you could tell us about your involvement in trade process automation.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. And I've listened attentively to all the presentations made today, and I've learned a lot of things from there. On the part of CBN, personally, over the last two decades, I've involved in a number of IT initiatives aimed at improving trade processes. And these processes, one that I so much hold to my heart was the automation of the import and export trade processes, which was done by the Central Bank in collaboration with other stakeholders in the value chain. The platform, we call it Trade Monitoring System, which is also integrated with the Customs Service system, where it allows traders to initiate transactions online, and for these transactions to be monitored by the banks, the Central Bank itself, the Nigerian Customs Service, and other regulatory agencies, from that point of initiation up to throughout the trade life cycle of such transactions. And since the system was deployed sometime in 2012, there has been a lot of greater transparency and accountability in the trade process, as well as a reduction of transaction costs. Now, it has helped us as a bank, for instance, to have a view of what is coming in and what is going out in terms of the volume. So, and it also allows other agencies of government now, they have to digitize their processes because they issue permits. Those permits used to be manually issued in the past. Now those permits are on the system now. You can see, you can have it attached, access to it online. That was not the case before. And that has greatly helped our process compared to the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Jibrin. That was a really interesting real-world example. Maybe if I could move to you, Wale. When you look at some of, maybe you could give some examples of F1 Interactive and some of the innovations that you guys have been trying when it comes to the trade value chain in Africa.
Okay, so we're playing in 4 areas of trade, and that's in discovery, payments, regulations, policies and rates, and transportation. So what we're doing with discovery and connection is simple. How do I discover who's selling flowers, for example, Cherokee flowers in South Africa? How do I discover that? Where? How do I connect with that person? So we're deploying platforms that allow you to discover buyers and sellers, and to connect these people together, and not just using apps, because apps can be quite complex for some certain categories of people, but also using WhatsApp, the WhatsApp channel, so you can actually update your goods or discover other people using WhatsApp. We are using dataless apps. It's a major one for us because from stats, especially in Nigeria, less than 2% of data subscribers actually have data more than 20 days in a whole month. Rest of the other users either don't have data or they are incidental users. So dataless apps, and they have smartphones. So dataless apps are huge for this. Another thing we're doing is that we are, through this platform, we are doing translation, because we realize that a man speaking Hausa or Arabic will be communicating with a man speaking French. So develop chat apps that allows real-time translation of conversation between two parties. Also, what we're doing with policy and trades, what we decided to do was that we've created a platform, and we've said that, okay, all the rules and regulation in a certain country, what are those rules and regulations? So we've uploaded this data. This data is now available. We're scrubbing this data everywhere. Like in Nigeria, what is banned? What's prohibited? Rice is banned. So if I go on my platform, for example, this discovery platform, and I want to import rice from, let's say, Uganda or from Ethiopia, what happens? It says it's going to block and say this is not allowed. No, rice is prohibited. So it's not going to allow that transaction go on. Also, we go further to say, if you're going to import, let's say, drugs to Nigeria, for example, what are the things that you need? You need NAFTA certification, you need the SON, every single thing that you need for that transaction to be concluded. We're going to present that to you. And that fits into AFTA's ACTFA's guiding principle of rules of origin. It's a very, very critical one. Another guiding principle is actually online negotiation forum, and that's what we're doing with the connection and with the connection platform. And maybe as we go on, we'll talk more about payments, what we're doing payments and transportation. But for payments, it's pretty interesting because we have everything to make it happen, to make payments work in Africa. It's all scattered. So we need to bring it together and put some intelligence to it and say that, for example, if I'm going to buy it, if I'm buying purchasing stuff below $1,000, for example, I present you with mobile payments, I present you with card payments. If I'm going to be purchasing stuff for over $1 million or $2 million, and the rule says, and the condition is that I have an LC, we present you with the LC payment. And I can see that there's a lot of disruption going on around the LC business and the trade business, like Emmanuel mentioned here. There's a lot of disruption going there. We are also working on disrupting the LC system using blockchain and escrow, because there's a thin line between escrow and LC. And yeah, there's a thin line. And we're also looking at how we're cascading down even LC to the loan system. So we're looking at possibilities too. Like Ecobank has infrastructure to make this happen. For example, they have the rapid transfer that handles remittance. Why can't we make that a payment system, for example? And so let's say a buyer or a consumer here in Nigeria wants to pay a farmer, let's say in Uganda. So using this rapid system, this farmer is able to cash out in his account or cash out from an agent or actually have that funds in his wallet. So there are several things we're doing, and we're advising banks and we're working with banks on making this happen. We'll talk more about this as we go on, and we'll talk more about the innovations that we're working on.
No, thank you very much, Wale. So the other thing I'd like to just have a look at is this whole issue of regulation. Regulation can be a major hindrance when you want to roll out new innovations, but the reality is there are regulations there to prevent fraud and an economic collapse as well, and the release of bad technology or products out onto the market. So I wonder if we could probably first start with one of the institutions, the central bank, Jibrin. The Bank of Nigeria is known for being open to innovation. I mean, it certainly has been for many years. I'd like to know what are you specifically involved in when it comes to the digitalization of trade? I understand there is a sandbox now, a regulatory sandbox in the CBN.
Thank you very much. Central Bank as a regulator is committed to a sound, safe and stable financial system, as well as overall consumer protection. Given this commitment, we are open to any technology that is safe and deliver efficient service to the consumers. You recall that sometime in June this year, Central Bank shared an exposure draft of regulatory framework for sandbox operations in Nigeria. And the essence of doing that is to provide a framework for regulatory oversight on fintech innovations. As been said by earlier speakers, fintech is very, very critical for financial inclusion, and also to mainstream our small and medium-scale enterprises that are operating in the informal sector. Without fintech, they will not be able to participate in the global market. And that is why, if you don't have a system that people trust, it will not work. So by the end of the day, when we get inputs of stakeholders, the document will incorporate all those observations, and so that we can have a stakeholder ownership. We are looking forward to a situation whereby the issues about payment, given the right environment and given the level of innovation we have in this country and in Africa, that our fintech will be able to provide solutions to them. So, and that is being done. We're hoping that by the time all the inputs are collated and reviewed, we'll come up with a document that will provide a standard for fintech operation in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's very good to see, actually, that there's such a proactive approach when it comes to regulation and innovation. I'm glad to say we have Shehu Abdulkadir has now finally managed to join us on the line. Can you hear us, Shehu? Speak. Can you hear Shehu?
Yes.
Yes, fine. So yes, if you could just maybe, as the panel is nearly over, if you could just tell me a bit about the digital project you're involved in for pre-shipment inspection of exports, because I think that's a really interesting example of technology in trade.
Yes. Good afternoon, Ted. Good afternoon, everyone. Just as the Jibrin from Central Bank of Nigeria stated, we are in line with government policies. The Federal Ministry of Finance and CBN Technical Committee Chairman has mandated us to follow up whatever technology the government puts in place. We have to do the following. We have to do the follow-up to engage ourselves for the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Unlike about 2 years ago, the NSP, which is the document of exports, being submitted, but Central Bank of Nigeria, in its wisdom, has created a platform that now exporters are submitted documents online. As we speak, we receive forms, all other documents, like pro forma invoice, purchase order, NSP forms online from exporters and the banks. This platform enables the exporters, the bank, ourselves, the Preliminary Inspection Agency, even Central Bank of Nigeria and the Nigerian Customs Service to interact online. So this technology has now enhanced the ease of doing business in Nigeria. The preliminary inspection procedure that takes about 2 weeks to conclude about 8 months ago, now within 6 days. Within 6 days of establishing the NSP form with your bank, we carry out inspections. Then we issue CCI in hours. Then these CCIs are transmitted to the Nigerian Customs Service even before the exporter's consignment gets to the ports of exit. So this system is really helpful in the case of doing business. On our own part, our software applications is really assisting us. Because we have offices in the outskirts, we are located in Lagos, but we have offices in the outskirts of Lagos and the interland. So all our offices are interland. If inspections that are done in the interland, other states like Ogun, Oyo, Ondo, Ekiti State, where we cover because we are in charge of Lagos and Southwest. All the inspections that are done in these states are communicated directly to us through our software application. Intranet we use. So to avoid delay, unlike before in the old, you have to maybe DHL document from Interland about 4 hours drive. You DHL, by DHL courier or other courier means, the documents get to us in Lagos in 2 or more days, in 2 or more days before we issue the certificate of inspection. The software intra application we use has eliminated this long process. So I think if you can ask exporters and other stakeholders, they were enjoying the business, so to say.
That's great. Thank you very much.
That's what I can say now.
That's great. Thank you very much. Well, we don't have much time left, but I would like to take a question which has been submitted by one of the delegates. It was anonymous, the question, but it says, how can we use technology to reduce documentation in trade transaction with specific reference to Nigeria? I think this really gets to the nub of how we can use technology to remove blockages. So I don't know, maybe Tayo, if everyone could just give a short answer on this, but Tayo, what would be your solution to it? Oh, sorry, I meant Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, okay, beautiful. Thanks, Ted. You see, we've already solved that problem. They mentioned the TRMS being done in conjunction with CBN and customs. We're already integrated to that. Once you're putting your documentation once, you don't need to add it again in the value chain. It's available to all stakeholders. It's solving 2 problems. On the part of regulators, we have a lot of people on the value chain, SON, that are not part of this process. They can just get onto this portal, put the QR code or with an RFID number, pick up the documentation that is completed. They don't need to enter it again. It's either entered at CBN, at customs, or pre-shipment. So all the information is gotten once for them. This information, let's imagine a truck leaves Nigeria, gets to Ghana. All they need to do, get the QR code or RFID, identify this, all the information that is already created in the Nigerian portal is available at that country. So you don't need to open up the container, start inspecting. You see whether duty has been paid, whether whatever is there, the rules of origin are being followed. Another beautiful thing about this is that we've already integrated to the supplier, to the logistics, and even to the marine insurance. So what happens? Let's imagine a bank like Ecobank. You have a beautiful payment system that's helping you pay in your local currency in 33 states in Africa already. Imagine them being on top like the portal. A customer is getting his goods somewhere in Nigeria. He says, where can I get the cheapest? Because Ecobank has that wide reach, they're able to tell them, go to this country, go to maybe Gabon or Zimbabwe, you get it cheaper. And they look at the cost of trucking is available for them online, and they can share these goods across. It gives ability to do what? For the customer to have a wide reach where you can choose a cheaper product. Look at the banks. The supply chain of the corporate is available to the bank. So they can decide to say, do I fund this group? We have the small market guys who can't digitalize their process. They form a cooperative society. They are suppliers to a corporate. So the bank can say, I can fund this. I've seen this purchase order for this amount of goods going to Zimbabwe. I'm Ecobank. Why don't I fund this group? And they take up money to do that shipment. And then you look at the regulators. The information is available on the click of a button. it's going to take a long time for most of the MDAs to do what? To digitalize. So if they get on this portal, this information is available in CBN, is in customs, and it's available on Optimus. And the banks have a payment switch like Ecobank. Why don't they go there, get the information they require, and they can do their job immediately? This is 15 years of trade experience, which we're putting to fore in Africa to make sure trade facilitation is done at a click of a button and a convenience. And then every parastatal can say, we've done our job, tick them. They can be sure that their job has been done. Money, income to their countries are there. And you are not going to have the problem of a good that came maybe from outside the ECOWAS region or outside Africa enjoying free trade tariff. Let me stop there because of time. Thanks, Dad.
Exactly, that's fine, thank you. And also maybe Wale, if I could just get your brief thoughts on this one, but where do you think this issue of producing documentation can be resolved when it comes to the use of technology?
Oh, well, blockchain is a perfect example. Blockchain, deployment of blockchain will help in eliminating a lot of documentation. And it's worked, and Deloitte has done a similar project with an Indian bank, and they've been able to crash a lot the time, and a lot of documentation is being used for trade. And I believe such technologies can be brought back and ported into Africa. We can develop African-based solutions. Secondly, like Emmanuel said, Emmanuel's solution sounds like a great one. And with people like Emmanuel's solution exposing APIs to other other third-party solutions to leverage on some of their capabilities, I think that's one thing that's going to make documentation and the whole process is streamlined, because we need to do a lot of connectivity, a lot of intertalking. We just can't stand alone. Everything has to come together. That's the only way we can perfect the system.
Thanks very much. And I think that gets at the very heart of the fact that we need to see cooperation and collaboration between different things to make this work. If I could just give you the last word on this, Shehu, yourself as well. Where do you see the key opportunities here?
What do you mean?
Oh, sorry. What I mean is in terms of when it comes to where do you see the real possibilities for moving the blockages for documentation in trade? Is there anything in particular you think is going to crack it?
No, the CBN is on top of it. I believe a lot with the CBN is that the TRMS we're talking about is a beautiful thing, but they are not done yet. It's still work in progress. To eliminate, later on, I believe before the end of first quarter of next year, the documentation process, the documentation involved in export trade would have been reduced to the barest minimum that everybody will enjoy. But for the time being, I think everything is okay.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Shehu. I think that's a positive note to finish on. I'm very sorry to my panelists. I'm afraid that we've run out of time, but I would very much like to thank my panelists, Shehu, Emmanuel, Wale, and Jibrin, for a very interesting discussion, which wraps up the webinar. So that brings us to the end for the webinar. Thank you very much for listening and for your attention. The webinar will be available, an edited version, in the coming weeks. Please look out for updates, which you will be sent. And now I would like to sign off. Thank you for your attention.